Tom Pechillo, and he's from BL Companies. Mike Stenko from Transpo Industries. So they're going to tag team this last presentation, and we're going to start with Mike.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And what I'd like to do is just give you a little history on where the Bridge Preservation Partnerships kind of came from. I don't know when it was, but it was probably about 7 or 8 or maybe even 9 years ago. There was a meeting in St. Louis. Federal Highway put it together, and it was primarily to form opinions or tasks about bridge preservation and what needed to be done about bridge preservation, because up till then, we didn't even really talk about it. And there was an individual that worked for the Federal Highway Administration. Some of the younger people in here probably don't know him, but we're talking about Jim Sorensen. And he was another individual that wasn't too passionate. If Jim got you one-on-one, you were coming away black and blue. Well, Jim got me one-on-one at that meeting, and he said, let's see, I'm going to say this politically correct, because if you know Jim, he wasn't politically correct. He said, you guys in industry need to get your act together. You need to form an association, and you need to get your story to the state DOTs and get them to understand what you're talking about. So with that said, so it didn't get beat up too much, we formed, a group of industry people formed the Bridge Preservation Association. Well, it became obvious pretty quick that a bunch of industry guys coming to a bunch of state DOT guys wasn't going to do much. So then it kind of went a little bit further from there, and that's when TSP2 got involved in the whole thing. And I have to say that since TSP2's involvement, we went from the first Northeast Bridge Preservation Partnership meeting, which probably was 20 people in a room, to what we have here today. So I think we have to take our hats off to Ed Welsh, John Hooks, everybody that's been involved in this to grow this to what it is today, all of us sitting here in this room. I thought I'd start this out with just a little bit of levity, but in all reality, this 5 years ago, and maybe even a little bit today, this was the perception. We had this nice engineer that represented the DOTs, studious, he was conscientious and everything else, and then we had Darth Vader on the other side. How many of you in this room have used the phrase, the dark side? Well, I tell you what, I represent the dark side. But what's interesting now is, I want to show hands in this room, how many people have gone from that nice little engineer there to the dark side? Welcome, welcome. Now you know what we've been going through for the last 50 or 60 years. This is what it is. We've had this relationship of, salespeople, all they want to do is they want to come in and sell you something, get your money, and get out of town. They don't really care about you. They just want to get a sale. Well, I think we're learning that's not the case. So before the partnerships, this is what we had. We had 2 individual circles. One represented industry, and the other one represented the DOT. It limited cooperation, communication, it created distrust, frustration, and it hindered progress and innovation. Industry, everybody says, you got to come up with new products, you got to come up with new products. One thing that I don't know who mentioned, I think Tom mentioned it, there's legislation that is, the proprietary products, 100 years old? Probably. I think it's 100-year-old legislation that says if industry comes up with something new, DOTs can't use it. Some people tell you they can, there's ways to get around it and everything else, but there's 100-year-old legislation that says we could come up with the greatest thing in the world that could solve every bridge problem out there, and you can't use it. Well, hopefully now that the Federal Highway Administration and others are really looking at this and saying, why do we have 100-year-old legislation when this country's infrastructure was built on innovation? Now we can't use innovation. So that's just a little personal issue I have there. But what the TSP2 is all about is this, bringing us together. There are a lot of associations that the DOTs sit around a big table and they all talk to each other and get into their microphone, and the industry and consulting engineers, you sit in the back of the room, don't raise your hand, don't say anything, you won't be recognized. That doesn't help. We get to hear what you're talking about. You don't get any input from industry, so that's not going anyplace. TSP2 has stopped that. You look in this room, and I guarantee you there's a lot of people from DOTs that are sitting right next to somebody from industry. That does not happen at other organizations. So I think that's a very, very positive thing. So a couple of things here that I'd like to recognize. The regional partnerships have promoted a new level of trust and communication between industry and DOTs. It's a nice opportunity for regional engineers to talk to regional industry members. You know, you don't want to talk to somebody at this meeting. You might talk to somebody that is from Alabama DOT talking to a industry representative that's from Seattle, Washington. But the regional partnerships put all those people close together that you can go see who you're talking to in a very short period of time or a very limited amount of travel. Industries gained a greater understanding of the critical preservation issues that the DOT face. You know, in the Northeast, one of the greatest presentations I think I ever heard was from John Buxton. He gave a presentation on they're using torpedo grease on their bridge bearings. Correct? No, what was it? Fluid film?
No, the torpedo grease never took off.
Well, they were looking at torpedo grease. I stand corrected. I shouldn't have called on you, John. I knew that. But it's stuff like that. Let's say it did work. That's something that nobody would know about. The DOT is open communication with industry to promote partnerships in developing effective new products, as well as the proper use of existing products. I think, you know, we've heard that a couple of times, that it's a matter of knowledge. Use the right product for the right purpose at the right time and put it in the right way, or install it the right way. And then you get repeated exposure. You know, we don't have one meeting and then we all go away for 4 years and we never see each other. So you're getting to see many industry members and state DOTs, and you formulate relationships. You see somebody once a year, twice a year, you get a relationship and trust going that person is really someone that you want to spend time with. My last comment here is this meeting, TSP2, cooperation with industry and DOTs and consulting firms, which Tom is going to talk about, we're all in this together, and everybody wins when we work together.
Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here today. Just want to say, from a consultant's point of view, I view ourselves as part of a team, and that team is comprised of all you here today, both FHWA, our vendors like Mike, most importantly, the state DOTs that have to own, operate, and maintain these structures we're talking about. We're all trying to do our best to figure out how to best preserve the existing inventory that we have. So, how do we do this? Few things. Relationships. We want to build on existing relationships we have with each other. We want to strengthen relationships that we have. We want to rely on each other for idea sharing, okay? We want to learn from each other, what works, what doesn't. Somebody can bring a great idea to the table, like John with the bearings. We all want to listen, right? Dialogue. We all want to talk to each other. Collaboration. We all have something to bring to the table, right? Let's listen, let's learn from each other. And most importantly, teamwork. We all want to recognize we're on the same team, we're doing our best to preserve our existing inventory, right? So as consultants, most of what we do is design. So I want to talk a couple minutes today about how we can best bring bridge preservation technology into the design world, okay? Leading off with expansion joints, somebody mentioned that. We're doing our best to minimize or eliminate expansion joints. But where we need them, we need to collaborate with our vendors and our product reps to understand what the best joint is for the best application, for the right movement capacity, for the right skew angle. What is the best product that's available? And most importantly, have a product rep on site during construction to ensure that that joint is installed correctly. That's our best bet for the longevity of expansion joints when they're needed. Another topic, galvanized or stainless steel reinforcing bars. They're expensive, they're not for every situation, but in the right situation, they will go a long way to preserve the life of our structures. So we should really consider those things. Sealants and coatings, whether they be silane, whether you're talking about corrosion inhibitors, whether you're talking about cathodic protection, whether you're, whatever it is. The ceilings and coatings industry rely on those reps. Listen to them. We can learn a lot and preserve the life of our structures by utilizing these products. Mention cathodic protection, not only for underwater situations, but potentially in bridge decks, substructures. We use it a lot for rehabilitation, but it also has its presence in new design. Again, not in every situation, but in the right situation. So we should consider that. Innovative technology, such as GRS IBS, that minimizes or eliminates the maintenance requirements through the life of the structure. Again, something to consider during design. Attention to details. As bridge designers, it's our job to detail the structure to, again, preserve the life of the structure, to extend the life of the structure. Something as simple as membrane waterproofing details at the gutter line. Okay, detail that properly, detail that correctly. You'll have a return on investment many times its worth. So I want you to notice that these things that are up on the screen, okay, we talked about teamwork. They're in large part, products that are researched and developed by vendors, designed and spec'd out by consultants, owned, operated, and maintained by state DOTs, and have oversight provided by Federal Highway. So again, I want to emphasize, we're all in this together, we're all on the same team, let's get it done. Thanks a lot and have a great conference.
The thought is that the best material or the best product in the world doesn't really help us in our bridge preservation activities, usually, unless it's installed correctly. And we have owners who try as hard as they can to write appropriate specifications and work with contractors to get your products installed. And then you, of course, have probably just as much interest as owners do in having your products installed correctly. So do you have any thoughts on how owners and suppliers can work together to make sure that, and I don't want to badmouth the contractors here, but make sure that prime contractors do the right thing so that we get the best product and the longest life out of your products?
That is a great question, and what we've seen in industry is more and more states are reaching out to industry when they're developing a specification for a treatment, and they're saying, look, you're supposedly the experts on the materials, the installation, everything else. Take a look at our specification and just give us some guidance. Are we missing it? Are we off base? Are we making it too strict? I think that's very important, and it's very well received on the states because they're incorporating some of industry comments into that. The other thing that I've been stressing, and a lot of industry people have been stressing over the last several years, is with the downsizing of DOTs and their personnel, very often what we experience on a job site is an inspector, might even be a summer intern, that was given a specification and a material data sheet maybe the day before he went to that job site, and all he knows at the end of the day, he's got to fill out how many hours he was there, what the temperature was, and how many square feet or how many lineal feet were installed. So what we're trying to do is get industry together, individually or whatever, and don't give presentations with your logo to state DOTs. Walk in and say, give a training course for your inspectors. A lot of states call them in the wintertime when there's nothing going on and everybody's looking for something to do. Get all the inspectors in a room. That's the first line of defense, because like Bruce said, if it's not done properly, you can take the best material in the world and you've got a mess. So, again, reach out to different types of industry members in your areas and say, please, come in, talk to our people. Don't sell us a product, but come in and give us the good, the bad, the ugly, and that way you're better equipped and armed to go out there on your inspection side and at least hope that you get the best opportunity for that material to perform properly.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.